You know there are famous buildings because they're textbook perfect. And then there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's famous because it's textbook wrong. And here's the truly unfair part. It didn't start leaning. After centuries of aging, it started leaning while it was still being built. Imagine you're building a house. You reach the third floor. You step back, and the house is leaning. What do? A. Tear it down. B. Call an engineer. C. Pretend you don't see it and keep building. The people of Pisa chose C, but with a small upgrade. It's leaning already. So let's keep building. Just smarter. And just like that, an accident became a global icon. So the real question isn't, why does the tower lean? The better question is, why does it lean and still stand? And why does the whole world love this kind of imperfection? Come on, let me show you. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is located in the city of Pisa in Tuscany, Italy. It's not a standalone monument. It's the bell tower of a religious complex known as Piazza del Duomo or Piazza dei Miracoli. This complex includes the cathedral, the baptistery, and the Camposanto cemetery. Construction began in 1173 and stretched into the 14th century. Its height measures about 55.86 meters on the lower side and 56.67 meters on the higher side. Because, well, it leans. But let's put the numbers aside. What really matters is this. The tower stands on a very difficult foundation. Soft soil, easily compressed, and uneven. And that single fact set off everything that makes this tower so fascinating. The tower leaned as a child, not in old age. You might think the tower leans because time wore it down. No, it started leaning during construction. The reason sounds almost ridiculous. Not bad craftsmanship, just soil that couldn't properly support a massive stone structure. And here's the painful part. Once the tower started leaning, you couldn't just pick it up and move it somewhere else. This was the Middle Ages. Cranes weren't exactly state-of-the-art. From that moment on, the Leaning Tower of Pisa entered survival mode, living with the lean. The real problem was under the tower. If you really want to understand Pisa, imagine this. You place a chair on wet mud. You sit down, one leg sinks first. The chair tilts, and once it tilts, gravity shifts more weight to that side, which makes it sink even faster. That's exactly what happened to the tower. Soft soil caused uneven settlement, and once the tower leaned, gravity helped it lean even more. Over time, here's the key lesson. Building strong isn't always enough. You can build something beautiful, something solid, but if the ground beneath it is wrong, everything fails. And Pisa is the most famous proof of this idea. You can be great, but where you stand matters just as much. A backward solution, building crooked to stay upright. This is where it gets interesting. When the lean became obvious, they didn't demolish the tower. They kept building, but with a trick. The upper floors were constructed slightly offset to visually counterbalance the lean. In simple terms, if the bottom leaned one way, the top leaned back a little, the other way. Not to make it straight, just to keep it from falling. The result is something strange. The tower doesn't lean in one clean, straight line. It's more like a body that's been adjusted again and again over time. Small changes, different directions, different generations. And that's the beauty of it. The Leaning Tower of Pisa isn't just architecture. It's a physical record of engineering decisions made across centuries. Why they removed soil instead of holding the tower up. By the 20th century, the lean had become dangerous. In 1990, the tower was closed for stabilization work. Now here's a question. If something is leaning, what's the instinctive solution? Pull it back upright. But in this case, that would have been extremely risky. A heavy tower, weak soil, pulling too hard could have caused a collapse. So engineers chose a solution that sounds like a child's sandbox game. They removed soil from the side opposite the lean. If the tower leaned right, soil was carefully extracted from the left. That side sank slightly, and the entire tower rotated back toward a safer position. It sounds gentle, but this was high-risk engineering. Remove too much, and everything fails. In the end, it worked. The lean was reduced to a stable level, and the tower reopened. In 2001, keeping the lean was part of the engineering goal. Here's the most important part. The goal was never to fix the tower. The goal was, don't let it fall, but don't make it too straight either. Because if it stood perfectly upright, it wouldn't be Pisa anymore. Even modern engineering had to respect the tower's identity. The lean had to remain obvious enough to recognize instantly. So engineering served a very human problem: safety and character. Pisa isn't a tower, it's a bell tower. Many people think of the Leaning Tower as a standalone tourist attraction, but originally it was a campanile, a bell tower for the cathedral complex. It wasn't built to be iconic. It was built to serve religious life. History just added a lean, a structure shaped by generations. The tower wasn't built in a single lifetime. It spanned decades, even generations. And when a project lasts that long, it stops being the work of one genius. It becomes the result of different hands, different ideas, and a lot of problem solving. Looking at the tower is like reading a book written by multiple authors. The only difference is, this book weighs 14,000 tons and constantly wants to fall over. Pisa's mindset: perfection isn't required. There's something deeply human about Pisa. The lean wasn't treated as a permanent embarrassment. Over time, it was accepted, then embraced. Think about it. A city whose signature feature is an engineering mistake. It sounds absurd, but it's real. And that's what makes the tower relatable. It feels closer to real life than flawless monuments, because it has flaws, and it survived anyway, preserving identity, not erasing history. When the tower was stabilized in the late 20th century, one principle was clear: preserve the lean, because the lean had become part of its cultural role. In other words, they weren't just preserving stone, they were preserving a story. The tower has two official heights. Look closely, and you'll notice something odd. The Leaning Tower of Pisa doesn't have one height. It has two. One side measures about 55.86 meters. The other, about 56.67 meters. A small detail, but it reminds you, this isn't just a tilted object. It's a living geometry, where every measurement comes with conditions. The tower's body curves like a banana. From a distance, the tower looks like a simple tilted cylinder. But look closer, especially at technical diagrams, and something strange appears. The axis of the tower isn't straight. It gently curves, segment by segment, like the shape of a banana. The reason is simple. The tower wasn't built all at once. Every generation faced the same problem. It's leaning, and every time they adjusted slightly. One floor leaned one way, the next corrected a bit. Over centuries, those decisions stacked up. The result? The tower doesn't just lean, it bends with history. If you sliced it vertically, the center line wouldn't be straight. It would be a smooth curve, like a banana, shaped by countless hands. And that's what makes this detail so powerful. The Leaning Tower of Pisa isn't just one mistake. It's the sum of many intelligent responses to that mistake. One error at the start, many corrections after, frozen into the shape we see today. Even sound had to live with the lean. One reminder, this is a bell tower, which means bells, movement, and vibration. When the tower closed in 1990, bell operations were affected too. Because a leaning tower isn't just about standing or falling. It's about function, sound, stairs, loads. Everything has to work. While slightly off balance, if the tower were straight, it might be forgotten. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Italy has countless beautiful bell towers. Only one leans without collapsing. The lean turned Pisa into a question, and questions pull people closer, preserving a mistake instead of erasing it. Preservation usually means protecting what's right. Pisa did the opposite. It preserved what was wrong and made it safe. That's a rare kind of maturity. You don't deny the mistake. You learn to live with it and strengthen it. That's why Pisa is more than architecture. It's cultural wisdom. Modern engineering negotiates with nature. The under-excavation solution feels like a negotiation, not forcing the tower upright, just nudging it and stopping at the right moment. Like telling gravity, you win, just not completely. That mindset defines modern engineering. Respect the ground. Respect existing conditions. Adjust gently until the system stabilizes. I love Pisa because it feels human. In the end, the Leaning Tower of Pisa resonates because it doesn't show perfection. It shows survival. You look at it and you see something that leans, fails, struggles from the beginning, and still becomes legendary. The Leaning Tower of Pisa offers a quiet reminder. Not everything that's crooked is a failure. Sometimes, what makes something unforgettable isn't perfection. It's how we handle what went wrong. So next time you see a photo of Pisa, don't just think, a tower people pose with. Remember this. There was a moment when people saw it leaning at the third floor, and instead of giving up, they chose something deeply human. They continued, but smarter. And because of that, the world now has a symbol, standing there, leaning there, and making us curious every single time.